Who am I to talk about brilliant business habits? Well, I have noticed over the years of being a business owner that it's the habits that make the difference between the people who are really, really successful and the people who are not so successful. So when I look over the 30 odd years of business, there is a correlation between people who have good habits and people who are focusing on habits that serve them, opposed to those who don't. So that's why I suppose I have a bit of authority from an outsider's perspective of watching people be very successful sporting-wise and very successful business-wise. And I've noticed there is a massive correlation with habits. So that's why I have a bit of experience with sharing this knowledge from an outsider's perspective and also from my own personal experience. So those of you that know me, I won't talk about this, about you, not about me, but my quick rundown for people who are in the webinar that don't know me is I've been coaching for over 15 years, or actually coaching for a lot more than that, but business coaching for about 15 years. Also, I have I suppose one of my greatest achievements is, and I've been married to my beautiful husband for over 37 years, nearly 38 years. So commitment and habits around relationships are really important, because family, you know, and love is what keeps us alive and keeps us inspired. I published my book a couple of years ago, which was a huge achievement for myself to try and help and inspire more people. I'm motivated by touching people's hearts, and my goal is to be a millionaire of hearts before I leave this earth. So that's enough about me. Most of you on the webinar know who I am. So I am just trying to move these slides, and I will go on to the next one. Okay, so when we talk about, you know, what I've noticed as far as habits and successful habits, there's got to be a huge mindset shift. So when we talk about habits, everything starts in our mind first. We have to think about something before we act on something. So when we look at the be, do, have, often people are wanting to have something in their life. So they're wanting to have, so I'm talking today about the context of business and the context of entrepreneurs. So we're wanting to have an amazing team. We're wanting to have plenty of free time, plenty of financial, to access if we needed to go on a holiday or do things. So what we're looking at is saying, okay, so are we doing the things that are giving us that? And are we being the person that, the kind of person that has that is actually being? And so often people are looking at it in reverse. They're basically wanting to have, but they're not doing or being. So question for everybody here, when we're talking about what in our business context are we thinking on a more repetitive basis? What do we want to have? What is it that we want to have? So generally it's around team or time or money. They're generally the three major areas in business that I hear from business owners repetitively are causing them to stay awake at night. So I'm wanting people to write in the chat, what is it that is the thing for them that they would like to have the most? Is it more time? Is it a better team, more engaged team? Or is it to have more money? Are they financially strapped? Is that causing them grief? So we've got a few people here writing in. So we've got freedom. So is that freedom of time, freedom of money? So I'm wanting people I want this to be interactive. There's no point in registering for a webinar and not actually taking something away. And the more we can actually participate, the more we can actually take away. So I really hope everyone's got a notepad and pen, and I hope people are going to participate. So we're wanting to have trust. People are wanting to have trust in their team. So please put in what is it? What is it that you're wanting to have as far as the be, do, have? What do you want to have? So when we look at what you're wanting to have, so as an example, if you're wanting to have an amazing team, well, then what are you actually being? How are you being in the head? What are you actually thinking as far as the habit, the thought habit? Because I hear people say to me all the time, if we're talking about team, oh, my team are hopeless. My team are no good. I've never got the right team. I can't trust my team. So in their head, they're being a person that does not trust their team. So they're doing things that are going to tell their team that they don't trust them. Are people getting the correlation? So I'll just reverse that again. So I hear all the time, people want an engaged team. I hear all the time, people want to have an amazing team that they can trust. But in their brain, they're not being the person that has an amazing team. They're not being the person that has a team that they can trust. So the things that they're doing show the team that they don't trust them by being the first one to open up, being the last one to close, by only looking after the best clients, by not giving them enough trust to be left alone, by not giving them enough trust to share the financials with them, to go on holidays. I mean, I don't know how many people have told me they haven't been on a holiday for a month. They have, like, I'm saying gone for a month's holiday. So I hear people, business owners, that haven't been on a holiday for years. Why? Because they don't trust the team. Now, what does that tell the team? It tells the team that they're actually, in their brain, they're not being the business owner that trusts their team. So let's look at saying, how do we change that? How do we shift our mindset? By starting to think in the mindset of the person that we want to become. And, you know, when I read this lovely man, James Clear's book, I don't know if you can see that, his book, Atomic Habits, which I absolutely loved, he talked about our habits being a vote. Every habit that we have is a vote for the kind of person that we want to become. And that's what I want everyone to get out of this webinar. I want people to think, what do I actually want to have in my business and in my life? So what are the habits that I need to be linking with that? So when we look at these habits, we look at saying, okay, what can we unlock in our brain to actually change these habits? What do we need to unlock? And if we look at saying, you know, our brain is our greatest asset, and we look from learning from success leaves clues. So if we look at billionaire habits, what are some of the habits that billionaires have actually built into their everyday life? So I'll share with you the YouTube of this later because it's quite an inspiring YouTube, but I've done some research on what are the habits that are working for really amazing, successful people. So one of them is they eat really good brain food. So they eat raw, healthy food. They eat food that fuels productivity. They eat food that actually is nourishing their body. They don't eat crap food. And that's a habit. So that's a habit of a billionaire, of saying, okay, my vehicle is the biggest asset. Great, I'm going to feed it with amazing fuel. If you had a Formula One car, what would you put into it? You wouldn't put terrible fuel into it. So that's the first habit of these billionaires. So when we look at other habits, they're in their brain, they have positive self-talk. They have a growth mindset. Instead of saying to themselves regularly, I can't do that, I'm no good with teams, I'm no good with money, I never achieve my goals, all this negative talk for the brain, what they do is they change that. And they change it to positive talk, because something has to happen here in our mind first. We have to think it and believe it and then do it, and then we get the results. So looking at the growth mindset and saying, okay, do I have negative self-talk? How can I think more positively? Now, you know, I wake up every morning and think of what I'm grateful for. I go to bed every night thinking, what's an amazing day going to look like tomorrow? So if you have negative self-talk, change it. You can change your thinking. The third habit of billionaires in business is that they exercise every single day. So what happens when we exercise, it actually helps us get smarter. It actually gives us free endorphins, and it makes us feel more empowered. It gives us more energy. We feel stronger. We feel fitter. So if you're wanting to be a better business owner and a better entrepreneur, are you exercising every morning? Now, for me, I was never a morning person, but luckily I changed that about 20 years ago when I got back from Sydney, and there was I was jet lagged, 3-hour difference. So I was up at 5 and saw all these happy morning people and wondered what they had that I didn't have. Well, I changed it. I changed my mindset and said, that's it. I want to be like them. I want to wake up happy and be motivated and not feel sluggish anymore. So I changed it. So is your habit when you start every day as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, is that habit feeling sluggish and not doing any exercise and not thinking positive? And one of the ways I do that is by meditating. I meditate in the morning to just get very focused and very calm and very clear what I'm grateful for and what a successful day in business looks like. Another thing that they also do is they surround themselves with really positive people. Our environment plays a massive part of our habits, a massive part. So when we're looking at saying what works for entrepreneurs, what works for successful people, they change their environment to change their outcome, to change their mindset, so that they know that their environment is serving them. They have their environment of the people they surround with, they're positive people, and they're people who are motivated and aligned with what they're wanting to actually achieve. So they're not negative people and not negative environment. So thinking about your environment, how is your environment serving you? Is your environment a positive, supportive environment? And is your business environment a positive, supportive environment? Is it a clean environment? Are you having clean water, clean desk, clean air? Is it uncluttered, or do you need some clearing out? Another habit of very successful people is that they get critical amounts of sleep. They get sleep. They work out what are the best sleep patterns for them and make sure that they're getting enough sleep. I definitely don't believe in people that can operate on 4 hours a night. For me, all the research I've done, entrepreneurs, billionaires, very successful people in all walks of life talk about sleep. Sleep is critical to us being at our peak performance. It's really critical. The other one here is they actually they have a habit of looking after their brain. So looking after their brain is essential, a habit for these very successful, high-performing people, by limiting the electromagnetic fields that they have around them, having some detox time, wearing helmets, not having drugs and alcohol that are actually poisons. So they have the habit of looking after their brain, and they control their stress. They keep the stress level down. So these are the habits that I wanted to share you up front of these are what successful people are doing. These are habits of entrepreneurs. These are habits of people that have come before us. And that's how we learn. We learn through following other people's success. So if we look at what is actually behind habit, so when we look at how we change habits, one of the things that we can look at is the actual framework behind habits and how we change it in context to us and in context to our business. So the first thing is, if we're looking at changing a behaviour, we've got to make it obvious. That's the first thing, is the cue. Make it very obvious. Now, if we look at our habits, we have bad habits and good habits. So do we have habits that we find that are really bad habits that we're wanting to get rid of? So if you've got bad habits, you know, one of the exercises that he talks about in his book of Atomic Habits is write a list of all the habits that are good habits and all the habits that are bad habits, the habits that are not serving us. So make them obvious. These are the good habits, make them obvious, and even the bad habits, make them obvious too, because then they're more obvious for us to actually change the habits. So when we talk about business and we talk about people's goals. I specialize in helping people make amazing business plans. So often people will have a plan of wanting to be very successful in their business, and then they have goals around that. So it might be marketing goals, it might be team goals, it might be growth goals. And then we've got the strategies of how we're going to do that. But what I really want to focus on is, are our goals and our business vision aligned with our habits? So if in your business plan we have, say, for example, it might be at the moment, it's very, very on everybody's conversations. They're wanting to get their team engaged more, and they want to attract more people because there seems to be a challenge with hiring good people. So what are the habits that you have in your business right now around retaining people, retaining really good people, and attracting really good people? So what are the habits that you have in place around that? So when we look at a habit, when we have this first cue that I'm talking about, make it obvious, one of them might be have one-on-ones with your team member. So if we want to make that obvious, well, make a regular time in your calendar. Have that time shared with the person that you value. It might be regular reward and recognition. It might be regular team meetings. How often are you having team meetings? How often do you tell them that they're amazing? So what can you do to make it more obvious so that it's something that you don't have to think about? Because the thing about habits is the less you have to think about them, the more they're automated, the easier they become. So the second one here, we've got make it attractive. It's got to be very attractive. So if our brain is going to do something that's hard, we naturally don't want to do it. So you might be thinking, okay, so how long is it going to be till I make a habit? Well, studies have been shown that it's not how, it doesn't take X amount of days to make a habit. It's the repetition that builds the habit. So what happens is the more times we do something, the easier it becomes and the more attractive it is because it's easier. And so then what happens is our brain naturally doesn't mind doing it. It's not repelled because it's so hard, because it's attractive. So if we're talking about, say, team meetings, I've had many business owners that have never, ever, ever had team meetings. Now, the first few times they were setting up their team meetings, they were very hard and it was hard to remember them. But once it was a reminder in everyone's calendar, once people were having fun in the team meetings, getting more engaged, getting more reward and recognition, getting clearer about what was happening, it made it more attractive and it made it more obvious. So people continued it once that habit was made. So the more times we actually do a habit, the easier it becomes. And, you know, in, I think it was chapter 11, they talk about the neuron pathways, and depending on what the habit is, our neuron pathways actually grow in our brain and they actually become bigger and more developed. So it makes it easier. So make it attractive. Whatever it is, we want to make it attractive. So in that example of team meetings, I've got companies now that love their team meetings because it's fun, because they're getting rewarded, because it's now getting the team all on one page. The third one is make it very easy. It needs to be easy. And the reverse is if it's a bad habit. So if it's a bad habit, we want to make it unattractive. If it's a bad habit, we want to make it really hard to do, really hard to do. So it's got to be something that is, if it's a good habit, it's got to be made very, very easy. If it's really hard, it's not going to happen. And then the last one, it must be satisfying. It has to be something that is going to reward us. Now, this is an actual loop. These are the 4 stages of the feedback loop that in our lives, we are continually, every single day, running this loop. So it might be, you know, I wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and my brain says, okay, you're tired. Maybe you don't want to get up, you want to sleep an extra hour. Well, okay, it's attractive because I've made it obvious because I have the alarm on anyway. It's attractive because I know I have more energy, and it's easy because I know there's only 30 seconds between me making the commitment or not. So just getting out of bed makes it an easy commitment to do. Making it satisfying is the reward I get afterwards, which is I have my breakfast, which is pretty exciting for me, having my breakfast. So when we look at the context of other things that sometimes business owners fear as far as habits, another one is financials. Often business owners are very scared of financials. They don't understand them. They fear them. There's problems around building up that cash buffer. So what we want to do, and another thing when we talk about making it easy is the more we learn about something, the less, the more attractive it becomes, because the easier it is for us. So if we've got financials, for an example, start to put some time aside to make it obvious to actually understand your financials, because the actual understanding of something can be a very big challenge of people actually making a habit because they don't know how to do it. So the more time we invest and the more times we do it, then what's going to happen, it's going to be more and more attractive. So if we're looking at understanding financials with the goal of having better cash flow or cash flow buffer or building up a cash flow reserve, the first thing we need to do is make some things obvious around us learning about it. The more we learn about it, the less the barrier is, that it comes down, the more attractive it is. So I've had organisations that had no idea around financials, but we started to get some obvious regular timing, got some people to work with them to be holding them accountable, got the attractiveness of it because we started to get that response back of saying, okay, we're starting to get some headway here, we're starting to get some understanding. And when we look at the reverse, the bad habit of never looking at financials, of not tracking financials, of not working on them, is to look at, okay, well, what was it like before? We felt like we were in the dark and we felt like we didn't have cash reserves. We felt like we weren't proactive. So in business, building habits around whatever area of the business is important to you is crucial to being a successful business owner. Whatever areas are important to you in your business, there needs to be a habit, because the more the habit is built up, the less effort it is and the easier it is for you, and the more attractive it is because you've got that loop giving you that satisfaction back. So I hope I'm making sense, because I get very excited about this. Now, I'll put my head down a little bit here. There's a couple of things here to be made aware of. So when we're looking at what drives our behaviours and what drives our habits, some people are driven by their beliefs and some people are driven by the process. So it's quite different. So if we can change your beliefs first, that's going to make it a lot more sustainable. And that way you'll be able to continue that habit for the rest of your life because it's become a habit. I mean, I've bumped into people that I worked with the likes of 10, 12 years ago, and they've said, Suze, I've kept that habit of that cash flow projection. I've kept that habit and those templates of the budget, and it's been a life changer. And we will never run our business without that habit. We will never go a month without looking at our profit and loss, our balance sheet, our assets and liabilities, how much people owe us and how much we owe, and our cash flow. Are we going cash flow positive? Have we worked for something? So when we look at these three layers of behavioural change, sometimes it's based on the outcomes and they change the process and then your identity changes, or the reverse, let's look at changing the identity first, because then you're going into the person you want to become. So as an example, if we're looking at saying, say, for example, let's talk around team members. It might be that you're wanting to have a really strong, engaged team and you're wanting to attract a couple more team members. If your focus is outcome, all you want is 2 more team members and you'll be sweet, you're not changed your mindset around being, an engaged, inspiring, motivated business owner that people are attracted to, then it means you haven't changed your identity. So your identity is looking first at, I would like to be an entrepreneur or a business owner or a general manager that inspires people to stay here, that inspires people to come and work here, that engages people's hearts to love what they do. And if you're that kind of business owner and build the habits around what a business owner does that trusts people, what a business owner does that engages people, that inspires people to put in the extra effort, then it means you're going to change your identity. So that will be changed forever as long as you continue those habits. So then people will be attracted to you. But if it's all outcome-based, I just need 2 more people in my team, or I'll be inspiring business owner and be amazing with these people now so I can attract 2 more people, then it means that then once that's over, you're going to revert back because you've got the outcome, you're going to revert back to the old identity. So we're wanting to look at what are the habits that you're doing every single day that are serving you, that are aligned with you, what you want to achieve in your business and in your life as an entrepreneur or as a business owner or as a general manager. So thinking about it from the identity point of view will get you sustainable change. Someone says, I'd like to run a marathon. So they do a training plan, it's all outcome based, and they run a marathon. At the end of it, they've done a marathon. But if they changed it from the actual mindset point of view and changed it from the identity and became a runner, after the marathon, they're still a runner. And in their mind, they're still a runner. They've not just done a marathon. So it's about the person that you would like to become. So when we look at the decisions that we make every single day, there is thousands and thousands of decisions that you make every single day that are decisive, tiny little moments. And what happens is they stack one on top of the other. And that's why each choice is a vote for the identity of the kind of person that we want to become. As an example, back to the team, because so many people talk to me about retaining people at the moment. So we've got a one-on-one, say, booked with a team member, or we've got a team meeting, say, as an example, a team meeting. But, something happens that it distracts our attention. And then lo and behold, the time for the team meeting has come and gone. And so what happens is that habit of valuing your team members is not aligned with your behaviour. So one of the things that people can do if they're wanting to really plan out what are these behaviours that I need to be doing, what are the habits that I need to be doing, it's much easier to write it down. So saying, I will, send a memo out to the team, I will be having a team meeting at this time, this location, talking about other things like your own personal behaviours. It might be committing to exercise, committing to spending time on understanding the gaps that are in line with what you want to achieve, like maybe financial literacy, understanding the gaps in your financial acumen and putting some time aside to learn about it, and then putting regular times aside to track it and to measure it. Same with your time. If you're finding that the time that you've always got is very reactive, what are we doing? So as you can see in this example, this diagram, as we go through the day, we have these little tiny moments that give us the choice. Is this going to be a good choice or a bad choice? Is this choice helping me that are building a good habit, building a good identity, or is it a bad one? Is it actually going to be against my goals, against me being an inspiring business owner, against me being the most aligned with my business plan and the most aligned with my values, the most aligned with my goals possible? Because I'm sure we've probably all had someone say, oh, I'd like to do this or achieve this, and you're thinking, okay, so your behaviour is not really aligned with that. Okay, so that's one of those choices. that we need to look at saying, am I making the best choice? Is this habit aligned with where I want to go? So making things really easy and obvious is the key. It's one of the keys to making it so much easier for us. Now, in relation to time, time is something that is often a very big challenge for people. So when we're looking at our time, there is different ways that successful people actually manage their time. So one of the things that they do is actually identify time as a hugely valuable resource. It's not an unlimited resource. So one of the ways that they manage their time is about identifying every day what is the most important task or what is the major of today, but looking at it more so what is the outcome that we want to achieve today. So what's the most important task that we have to do that's aligned with that? My personal habit, and a habit that I would always encourage people to do, is the night before, the day before, be very clear on what's the outcome for tomorrow, so that when you go to bed, it's downloaded, it's planned. What do I want to achieve tomorrow? What is the most important task that I need to do that are aligned with my outcome? Now, that's the habit that I do every single day, because I want to know what success looks like. Because if I can't see what success looks like, it's going to be really hard to happen. It'll just be a winging it day. But when time is our very scarce resource, we want to be proactive. So it's a habit, pardon me, that a lot of people that are very successful at the habits that serve them, this is a really key habit, is getting clear on what success looks like the day before. So another thing they do is they work from their habits. Sorry, they work from their calendar. I'll share this YouTube with you as well. It's a great one. They basically work there every day. The habit is they work from their calendar, not from a to-do list, because if it's in your to-do list and it's not in your calendar, it won't get done. It's just a wish. So they focus their outcomes based on their calendar. So they focus anything that is a really important regular habit is a reoccurring appointment in the habit, and the rest is pre-planned so that your whole team know what you're doing when you're doing them. And the other one is this really helps with procrastination. It makes a massive difference because you're living by this precious amount of time that we have for that day, and we've already pre-planned based on proactive what's really important, because there's always going to be more to do. Another one of the habits that people who are very good with their time and very good with the habits is they have a habit of having a notebook, so that notebook, they can jot down any blue sky thinking moments that they have, they can write it in their notebook. Another one of the habits they do is they control their inbox. Their inbox doesn't control them. So they have a habit of having particular time in their calendar for looking at their emails. And sometimes they might put an automatic response saying, I look at my emails twice a day. If it's urgent, call me. So they manage their inbox. So you would control your inbox instead of it controlling you. So get very clear on how the inbox is managed so that it's not something that's directing your day. All meetings are scheduled in advance, which I mentioned before, and you don't go to every meeting. It's only ones that are very, very important, that are aligned with your vision of your business, the vision of you, of who you'd like to be as an entrepreneur, and with your business plan. Say no to things that don't support your goals and your vision. You don't need to say yes to everything because, as I said, we have limited time. I firmly believe that people can get a really amazing day as a business owner achieved within business hours. They don't need to work 10, 12-hour days. They're just not being efficient enough. They don't have good enough habits in place and good enough rituals in place and proactively managing their time. So they're obviously not looking after their team, haven't got habits around that to trust them if your business operates out of hours, or there's some agreements with what you feel you can get achieved and what you can't get achieved in that time. But it's really important to manage that time proactively so that it serves you. Another one here that successful people do as a habit of manage their time, they focus on their strengths. They focus on what they're very strong on and have a regular habit of delegating things that they're not good at. So when you look at what you're doing every day, could you potentially have a habit of looking, at it and saying, what can I delegate? What can I delegate? So regularly palm off work that other people are quicker and more qualified and more efficient at doing it than you. And not long ago, I had a gentleman that had a habit of doing his own invoices because he didn't trust anyone else. Now, his invoices were about 6-7 weeks behind, and he was like holding, I think it was like close to 200K of invoices because he didn't trust anyone, because he had the habit of doing them, but he didn't need to. He could have quite easily got a bookkeeper or somebody else, trained somebody else to do them. Now, that was a silly habit that he had. So what habits can you start to delegate? The other habit here of successful people and their habits around managing their time is, if there is something that only you can do and you can do it in between 2 to 5 minutes, do it. Do it straight away. Get it out the way. Get it done. Get it done and dusted, because sometimes if we have to write something in a to-do list, plan time to do it, it can just take just as long to do it. Also, have that attitude of only working in your calendar on things that are productive, things that are really productive, that are serving you. If you've got a regular job that you don't like doing, that's not serving you, that only you are doing, then it's not giving you energy, it's not being productive. Change that. Give that habit to somebody else. Get somebody else to do it. It's not something that's serving you. So I'll share this YouTube, but I wanted to share this because time is something that we really need to think about, how our habits around time. We can get more money back, but we cannot get more time back. So if you're not proactively creating some habits around your time that are valuing it as much as it is, which is like a huge value, we can never get it back. It's time to start thinking about, okay, what are other people doing that are habits around time that are working for them, and how could you actually change that? What could you do in your habits to change that? So things that we've mentioned here, I'll share in the YouTube of how habits have shown people around time to be very, very serving for them. So think about just one thing that you could change that would make all the difference. And then that way it's going to be a habit that you'll start to build, that you'll find, okay, yes, I am proactive with my time. I am pre-planning my meetings. I am looking at my time the night before. I am getting clear on what is my major for tomorrow, or what's the most important task that I've got to do tomorrow to achieve the outcome that I'm wanting to achieve. So think about what you're doing with your time and what habits you need to change. And is your time, is that utilization of time, is it in line with where you want to go? Is it in line with what you want to actually achieve? Or are you running around looking after everything that's not to do with where you want to go and the kind of person that you want to be? So when we look at my habits in business and the habits that I would recommend, in my book, I've just given a bit of an outline of what I find is it's very worthwhile for business owners. So some of the habits that I've installed with business owners is getting these sort of reoccurring appointments in your calendar to check in with how everything is on a regular basis. So when we're looking at them, we're looking at saying, what are you doing daily? What are you doing weekly? And what do you have set up weekly? Looking at your goals, looking at your strategies. Then what are you doing monthly? And is it set up proactively? And then what are you doing each quarter? Have you set up your alignment of where you would like to take your business and where you would like to take your entrepreneurship and your learning? Is that aligned with what you're actually doing? So then every quarter, I would be looking at, really looking at a very deep dive in how we're tracking to plan. How are the strategies working? What are we testing and measuring? What are the habits around testing and measuring? Testing and measuring is a huge habit that if something is really important to you, like as it might be marketing, you're wanting to maybe work on your marketing. And you might say, look, I'm not sure where the best place to get my leads are. Well, what is your habit around testing and measuring that? Do all the team have a habit of asking people where they heard about you? Do all the team have some way of tracking every lead that comes in the door and when it came in, and what's our conversion rate to quote, and what's our conversion rate from quote to sale, and what's our retention rate of our clients, what's our average dollar value of our clients, what's the lifetime value of our client? Now, these are all habits around marketing. So if marketing is important to you, whose job is it to actually build these habits and to track them? And the thing is, if we have this as a habit and we're regularly reviewing it either on a weekly or a monthly basis, what's going to happen? We're going to learn from it. We're going to learn, okay, who are our best clients? We're going to learn where our best leads coming from. We're going to learn our conversion rate. We've been tracking that habit of tracking it every month. We've actually started generally just by tracking something, you'll improve it. So then we can look at saying, let's try some different ways of actually, maybe presenting our quotes, maybe answering our phone, maybe having our first meeting with our prospects. So if we don't have the habit of tracking it, if we don't have the habit of breaking it down on a regular basis, we won't improve it because we won't know. So I hope people are starting to get it. So you might be saying in your head, I'm not good at marketing. That gets back to the identity. Okay, so what is telling you you're not good at marketing? Maybe you haven't learned about marketing. You don't need to know about marketing. One thing that you need to do is you start to build the habit up of testing and measuring what is actually happening now in your marketing. If you wanted to improve it, once you've tested and measured, then you might either, one, get the habit of starting to learn about it, or two, you might employ someone to do it or get a contractor to do it. But the first thing is to start the actual process of building that habit and start the awareness. And remember, we've got the habits, we've got to make sure that it's obvious. We've got to make sure it's easy. We've got to make sure it's rewarding. We've got to make sure that it's something that we enjoy. We've got to get that loop working. And the reverse if we don't like doing it. So this is my recipe of what I would recommend to business owners as far as the business habits. And as an entrepreneur and a business owner, if you start to build these habits with your team, what are they going to start to do? They're going to start to build the habits themselves as well. They're going to start to build the habits of regularly checking in with how they're going, of regularly communicating with people how they're going. And they're going to start to respect you a lot more, because generally I find it's the business owner who generally bails first if we're starting something new with the business, not the team, because they want, people like accountability. They like being engaged. They like being rewarded and recognised. So if we're starting some habits around things that are aligning with where our business want to go, and you communicate and engage with the team to come on board with you, they're just going to be more inspired to stay there. They're just going to be far more engaged because they're part of something that's bigger than them, and they can see the change, and they're going to see the vision of where you're taking your business, and they'll see that your habits are aligned with where you're taking your business. Because so often I see team members looking at the owners, and I can see them looking and thinking, this guy's a douche. He's not aligned with where he's saying he's taking the business because he's not doing it himself. He's not valuing himself. He's not valuing his own time. He's not valuing learning on how to become a better business owner, better at financials, better at engaging the team, better at creating better systems, identifying the gaps and saying, how can we improve them? Companies that regularly do SWOT analysis with their team, it's a habit that they regularly do to say, how can we improve? How can we get better? How can we all grow together? So it's a topic that I just can't, I suppose, impress enough with the direct correlation between the habits in your brain, of how you talk to yourself about yourself when you're by yourself, the habits in your brain and how they're aligned with your behaviours and how they're aligned with where you want to go. So if you start to reverse that and say, this is the kind of person I'd like to become, this is the kind of business, this is the kind of, oh, sorry, I just had a message come up. This is the kind of inspirational leader I want to be. So thinking that and then starting to do the behaviours, the more times we do something, it's the number of times we do it, the more our neuron pathways will be easier to connect. We're building the pathways, and the easier it is to continue with that habit. And the more feedback we'll get, because we'll start to get the reward, whether it's fun workplace with a better team if you're upping your game as far as a business owner, whether it's more money in the bank because you're upping your financial literacy because you're finding all the cracks, or whether it's better smooth running day and coming home at 5 o'clock instead of at 6 o'clock because you found some systems that you've tweaked that you're running it better. So whatever it is, whether it's changing, watching TV at night and getting up early in the morning instead and doing some exercise. And I've seen people that have got teams together at work to exercise so that everyone's motivated together. So that's the habit they do. Whatever it is, start to think about who is the person you want to become and what are the behaviours that you need to change. What are your bad habits that you want to get rid of and make unattractive and how they're damaging you, and what are the good habits that you need to switch around. You know, I'm not advocating everybody to stop drinking alcohol because I love a glass of wine, especially those that know me, a gin and tonic, but I have seen people in business where alcohol is not serving them. Every night they use that as a method of relaxing, and it's a toxin that's actually ruining their brain. The damages of alcohol are ridiculous. Now, I've seen firsthand many business owners, my husband one, that have stopped it altogether because they've realised that that habit is not serving them. And wow, what a difference. The neuron pathways start to grow again. And I've had many people say it's like someone cleaned the windows of their life. So that was one habit they did that changed their whole life because that wasn't serving them, because they were using them every day as self-medication for stress. But they changed the habit into using other things to get stress relief, changed the habit of drinking to the habits of exercise, meditation, yoga, walking, whatever it is. And now that habit totally changed the rest of their life. So what is that habit that you need to change? So I'll finish off here with just a couple more things before we finish off, because we're getting close to running out of time. These are my habits. These are my tips. And those of you that know me, that have read my book, know that I've had many speed humps over my life. And yes, I was a person who did not used to exercise. I was a person who did used to run my business reactively. And yes, I was a person who used to wake up and have a picnic bar and a can of Coke for breakfast. That was what I had. That was my habit. I did used to smoke. I did used to have alcohol every day. So I have been in patterns where habits didn't serve me. So I am talking from experience here at what's worked for me. And this is my own personal recipe of what I know will work with me. So I wake up every day with the positive attitude of gratitude. And I go to bed every night thinking a positive attitude of gratitude. I go to sleep thinking and listing through all the things I'm grateful for. So I'm going to sleep on a high, relaxed, thinking I'm so grateful for my family. I'm so grateful for my health. I'm so grateful for my amazing team at work. It's just a little way of relaxing myself and going to sleep and feeling grateful. And the same when I wake up. So it's just a way of changing the neuron pathways in your brain to be on a positive note, which makes a massive difference. I always have an open, honest, vulnerable communication. Those that know me or work with me know that warts and all. So many business owners hide things. So many people that want to be entrepreneurs hide things. But if you look at any of Brene Brown's work, you look at Richard Branson's, any of these inspiring people, Anthony Robbins, being vulnerable is a really, really inspiring part of being a leader. So hiding things when time's tough from your team is not serving you. So it's a great habit to be able to be sharing with your team, you're being open and vulnerable. One of the things that I've done, which some of you may have done, is sharing stories with team. When we have a small, intimate situation where people share stories of adversity and what the gold was in them, and it really connects the team together. The third habit that I have is I always have a plan. I have a plan for success. So I really know what is my formula for success and what is success to me. Now, like everybody, it doesn't always go on the same timeline that I would like, but that's what happens. Life happens while we're making other plans. When we don't plan to have things get thrown at us sideways when we write our plans. But I always have a plan and tweak it. That's why we have to be open to tweaking our plan. My fourth one is I'm always continually learning. I've got so many lists of books that I want to read from so many things I want to learn. So what are you learning about? How many books have you read? How many, if you don't like reading books, listen to books. I put mine on audio so people could listen to it, or YouTube's. What are you learning about? And is that in line with the person you want to become? Is that in line with the vision of your business, or where you want to take your business? The other is tackle challenges head on. If you've got a challenge, the longer you leave it, the harder it's going to be and the bigger it's going to grow. If you've ever read Michael Singer's book of The Untethered Soul, he talks about, someone having, a little prickle in their arm, and they build something around it, and they build something around that. Why don't they just pull the prickle out to start with? It's just an example. So always tackle challenges head on, because they're a lot smaller when you tackle them straight away. They just get bigger and bigger and bigger as you avoid them. Fall in love with exercise. I cannot stress how much impact exercise will have on your sleep, on your cognitive ability, on your energy levels as a business owner, so many different levels. We are a human being. This is our vehicle. We need to keep it fit and healthy, whether it's just a walk or a swim, whatever it is. Fall in love with exercise. It will be your best friend. Meditate daily, even if it's just 5 minutes, just quiet time to be you. Keith Collins says thinking time, just 5 minutes of thinking time, just to settle and just to focus on what's really important for you. What are the habits that you need to be installing that are going to serve you best? And who are the people that are going to help you on that journey? Who are the people you need to be surrounding you that will help you on that journey? So they're my personal habits that I've built up on my journey of life, because we're all on a journey, and they're mine that I want to share. So create more time by doing these things that I've talked about today. If you build habits around time, if you build habits around valuing your team, and if you build habits around financial literacy and financial tracking and testing and measuring, you will improve in those areas. And I've mentioned time, team, and money, because these are the things that come up for me the most. So what does success look like for you in your business? And what area is it that you need to start changing your habits around that will align you with where you're wanting to go? So get clear on what success looks like. Look at those habits that are stopping you, that are not aligned with it, and start to create some habits. One of the things that I talked about in my last webinar about habits is pairing habits. If you've got a habit that you've really tried to install, start to look at, okay, so what's something I do anyway? Let's pair it with that, or pair it with someone who's already doing it. And that's why, I have my entrepreneurs group once a month, get together with like-minded people to be working on the productive things that are going to help you achieve your goals. The habit of catching up once a month to work on your business, to learn, to be held accountable. Accountability is a real key with habits as well. So that's going to help you. Find somebody else that wants to develop the same habit That's why doing things in groups like entrepreneurs or walking groups or riding groups or cycling groups or learning groups makes a massive difference. So look at what you can do to create that will give you much better success. So I'm hoping I've resonated. And as I said, for me, you know, every habit is a vote for the kind of person you want to become. So are you the best version of you possible, or could you be a better version of you? If you looked back 20 years ago and looked back to you now, what would you say? Would you say, wow, you've really built up some good habits and you could actually develop even more? You could actually shine even more. You could develop some more habits that are going to serve you even more on this part of your life. So I hope that I've got something in your brain that has clicked, because reading this book, I think I read it 4 or 5 times, and it's the second webinar I've done on it. But every time I learn something more that is going to help people to just click a little bit more with how our behaviours are aligned with our thinking and our identity and our outcomes. And so often they're not aligned. And what we want to do after today is have you identify what is that habit that you need to change that is going to just give you one step closer to what you want to actually be living and the person you want to become. So I will finish up with any questions. If anyone has any questions, we've got 1 minute for questions. And I also just wanted to say that if somebody is who's been listening to this webinar would like to have a 10-minute chat with me, I'd be more than happy to have a chat about their situation with their particular habits and how they're serving them or how they're not serving them. There is a lot that goes into this, and I'm more than happy to have a 10-minute conversation to see how I can help. So just in the chat, I'll stay in the chat for a couple of minutes. In the chat, just write down your name or your email address and say, look, I'd love to have a chat, Suze, and we can book a time to have a chat and see if I can help you be the better version of your next version of yourself, the better version, and really live into the person you want to become. So if there's any questions, I'm more than happy to answer any questions, and let's see what questions people have. Okay, so I've got 2 screens, so that's why my eyes are looking from here, because I can see the questions here. Let's see if we've got any questions. Pardon me. Okay, so we've got some questions here. Oh, it doesn't seem to be that the chat is working. Okay, question and answers. Okay, is the recording available? Yes. Chat is disabled. Question and answers working. Yes. If there's any questions, write them in the question and answers. I'm more than happy to answer them. I'd love people's feedback if they would, if they have identified a habit that they need to change. I would love you to write it in the question and answer. That would be great, because it looks like the chat's not working. So if you could just write in the chat if you've got a habit that you've identified that you have now had something click, which my brain certainly has as I've been delving into the habits of successful people. And if you've got any questions, just put them in the question and answers. No, you don't have to give up your to-do list. I love to-do lists. But what I do have is I have them, I have the time allocated to do them. So I love my to-do list. And that was just recommendations of entrepreneurs that recommend the habit of living your day by your calendar is more important, because then you're proactive, but you can have time in your calendar to address your to-do list. So a really, really good question. And no, I love my to-do lists. Any other questions? How much time do you actually need to build good habits? It's actually not the amount of time, it's how many times you do it. That's what happens. So in many of the studies that I've read about habit building, it's actually the repetition that builds the habit, not the amount of time. So if you're wanting to build a habit around running, if you say, I'm going to just get up and run for 5 minutes every day, that is enough. Or walking. Or if I'm going to proactively plan my time, if you do that for 2 minutes a day, that is a habit that will start. It's not the amount of time, it's how many times. It's changing the neural pathways in your brain that does it. 10 suggestions relating to reading lists. Well, if you've not read Atomic Habits by James Clear, I would definitely say that's a must around habits, because then that will change everything else in your life. That will change totally everything else. Around mindset, the growth and mindset, Carol Dweck's New Psychology of Success will help change your mindset around that. That's an amazing book. It will change the way you think, and that's an amazing book. Other email me for other book. I've got a whole list of a reading list recommended that I put in my book. There were 2 that have come to mind. Michael Singer's The Untethered Soul is an amazing one around controlling your mind and understanding that life just happens. It happens as we're making plans, so not putting meaning on it. And so yeah, so that will hopefully help you a little bit. Push back on reading emails at certain times of day. Some people are really wanting to have instant connections. Yes, I do understand that. But if you're proactively planning your time and have people aware that when you're working on a project, you're focusing on a project, you're not being reactive to emails. So some people have automatic replies on that say, thank you very much for your email. As you know, I'm working on some really massive projects where I really need to focus and concentrate. So I'm only checking my emails at 9, at 12, and at 4. So if it's between the hours and it's urgent, please text me or please ring me. People understand, because if they're your clients, they want your undivided attention in any project. So very valid point, really valid point. So I think that's probably about it. So if you're wanting to have a one-to-one chat, please put your details in the question and answers, or email me, or just put in there and I can get one of the girls to set up a Zoom chat for us. But I just want everyone to understand how powerful this is when you know your habits that serve you, and get rid of the ones that don't. It's a game changer with everything in your life. It's a game changer. So reach out if I can help, and I'll let everyone go because it's 6 minutes past, and I know people have got lots of things to get on with. Thank you for joining me. Thank you very much.